Okay, welcome back. How was your weekend? Okay, slow motion. Anybody do anything fun? Exciting? Anybody start a business yet? Um, all right, so we're supposed to be doing digital marketing this week. I'm going to save that for next week because I'm still compiling some information from the book. So this week we're going to be focused on marketing research and marketing intelligence, right? Or market intelligence. But before we begin, how are the projects coming along? All right. Your next assignment involves a SWOT analysis, so be prepared to come up and talk about that. That's at week 8. So we're in week 6, I think, so far. Any difficulties communicating with the organizations? Any issues? Well, obviously not yours. What's that? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Hey, reach out. Honestly, reach out. Email them. Ask questions. Ask if you could come in person and kind of walk through and see the environment, like, right? The perception of how the business operates, how it functions, other than trying to just observe secondhand of strengths and weaknesses off a website or something of the sort, right? Huh? Well, you already know, so you don't need to. Yeah, but get creative. Hey, not everybody can make it. Well, somebody who can't make it, go record a video, right? And so if you're talking within your group, you could have illustrations and show like, hey, this is that. Make it work. Get creative, right? The other component is this could be something that you present during interviews for your job, prospective interviews or employer in the future. And they're like, hey, what real world experience do you have? You're like, hey, I actually develop a marketing plan for such and such. So if you reach out to these organizations, you can present them this plan. You're like, hey, here's a plan for the next 6 months or your next quarter, right? And maybe we'll revisit you in 3 months to see the results. Did you increase sales and such and such? Was there more awareness? How effective were these results? So use this as an opportunity as part of your portfolio coming out of college. Like, I've actually created a plan for this organization, right? So don't just make it a class assignment. It's a good opportunity, right, to reach out to real businesses and have some real results. Who knows? If you're really good at persuasion and communication skills, they might give you a small budget, right, to implement your plan. Might be like, hey, here's $2,000. But I'll leave that up to you. Okay, market research, market intelligence, right? We're trying to figure out, well, how important is information to us? What types of information are important? Is there a hierarchy of importance? Where could we source information from? How do we how do we obtain perspectives of consumers, future consumers? How do we know how consumers view an ad campaign, a marketing campaign, right? So here we're trying to think of information that's important and how intelligent information is to us in terms of the market. Right? The market is the particular environment in which your business or product or service operates based on similar and familiar sort of offerings. All right, so we're going to look at some market research and big data, some market information, successful marketing research plans, and then ethical issues with market research. Okay, so the American Marketing Association, which is the big one. All right, so if you get a degree in advertising or marketing management, this is the group you want to join, right? They sort of foster and look over sort of market research, planning strategies, educational things about happening in um, marketing, right? New things, new methods. Here they define marketing research as the function that links the consumer, customer, and public to the marketer through information. Additionally, marketing research specifies the information required to address these issues, designs the methods for collecting information, manages, implements the data collection process, analyzes the results, and communicates the findings and their implication, right? So start to finish, right? Hey, here's a problem that an organization has, and we want to figure out how to solve it. So here's my research problems or research questions that I have. How am I going to go about finding the information that could solve this problem? How am I going to collect the information? Methods. What are some methods that we could collect information from consumers or even prospective consumers? What are some ways we could collect information? Yeah. Right. Hey, we say surveys, in-person surveys. It could be individual. It could be one-on-one. It could be interviews. What else? Other ways we could collect information. Focus groups. All right. Anyone ever participate in a focus group? Anyone ever participate in any kind of marketing research? Yeah. What was it? Just online? But you never had to go in person to do. Okay. Hey, there's some good extra cash. Go sign up for Smith Research, Nielsen Research. There's all sorts of focus groups. You could come $300 for an hour, $150 there. So, and as a student, I think is a good opportunity to sign up for those things. They'll reach out to you for things you may qualify for. But we say, hey, we could do individual interviews. We could do focus groups, which are a group of individuals, and we will let them sort of talk amongst themselves, or we just moderate, right? Not trying to direct conversations. Secondary information. We say we could get things from governments, databases, market databases, right? All sorts of ways. And then we say primary research is when we do it ourselves. Secondary is getting information elsewhere. All right, so marketing information, known as business intelligence, right? Competitive intelligence or marketing intelligence is information about the market that helps a company or organization identify opportunities in the market, right? So, how do we go about seeking new opportunities? We could seek out trends and demands. We could say, hey, customers have really been purchasing this particular product. We could see it from the information here. Maybe the information comes from our competitor. If we're talking about Johnny's Beef, we could say, hey, Buona Beef, which is located 3 blocks east of Johnny's, have been making a killing in terms of some new addition to their Italian beef. They started adding some new concoction. All right, we're like, that's good information, it's good intelligence. Right? We know that there's a demand there. So maybe we should try to seek that as an opportunity. Determine its strengths and weaknesses, right? So we can use business intelligence or marketing intelligence to see, hey, what are we doing good? What are we not doing well, right? Evaluate external environments, opportunities, and threats. Right? We're looking at just basically behavior out there in the marketplace. Maybe rules and laws have changed, external environment things, right? Maybe regulations have changed, and now it's opened up an opportunity for us to capitalize off something, right? Something has changed. We see that very often here in government. When we say the government is usually the largest employer, whether it's city, state, federal. So whenever there is some allocation of budget resources to a particular industry, that's good information to know because that might be an area for you to kind of capitalize on. Think of who's familiar, well, who's gotten parking tickets in the city of Chicago before? No one's ever got a parking ticket, right? Do you know who owns those parking meters? Yeah, right. It's a company out of Abu Dhabi, right? That purchased the rights to those meters, 36,000 meters, and they would get all the revenue from that, right? And so you say, hey, that was a government move, right? Mayor Daley, we already know for what reasons a move like that would be made. But essentially, that company has made well over what they purchased it from. I think they purchased it for $1 billion. I think they made $1.5 billion up to this point. They probably made more, maybe about $2 billion up to this point, right? But new opportunities would rise from that. Whoever's going to manufacture the um, parking meters, the computers to scan the information, the systems, the programming, right? All of the above. New opportunities happen just from the stroke of a pen in government legislation, right? And we could use that information too. And then we could use it to support decision making from a long-term strategic approach to smaller issues at a tactical level. We say here we're trying to figure out tactics. So we're talking about the sports organization. We're going to focus on one particular thing. We're not going to try to generalize, revolutionizing what they do. We're going to focus on a particular facet of the business that's either an opportunity or something you already do well. Who's the target sort of market for that? What groups specifically? What group will be aimed at? And how do you position yourself, right? In the minds of that group? What's going to be your messaging to that group? Whether it's like, social media advertising, print ads, billboards, transit things. And then we use it to stay competitive and meet the customer's needs. Right? Customers' tastes and preferences change. We need to know how are they changing. Right? They change because so many other things in the marketplace are changing. Maybe they change because of price. So now we may have to adjust price based on some information of low sales, based on the information of our competitors change their price. Maybe we should change ours, right? Go up, go down. We need that sort of research information. Big data, often described as using the 3 V's, which is volume. The amount of data is vast and increasing, such as government websites, these databases, even with the NAICS, right? That sort of big data that we could use. Velocity, it continues to surge exponentially, which means the information is changing all of the time, right? Which is really market information. And the variety, the diversity of the data is just as unique as it is vast. And so when you go work for an organization and they put you in a marketing department, usually they will have some sort of database software that they house all this information. In which case you want to be sort of educated on and competent in, right? We call those marketing information systems, databases that we use to collect information, analyze and report interesting findings from internal and external data of the company. What is internal data? What do you, hmm? Like what? Give me an example. What's some internal? Hmm? Yeah, you say, all right, employees sales, right? Sales is internal information. Number of employees, budget is internal information, right? How much money you have on hand, all sorts of things like that, right? And what's external data? What could be an example of external data? Competitive data. You're like, hey, okay, I'm in the business of selling phones. Where do I get information? I'm gonna look at the big player. I'm gonna look at Apple, right? If I'm Apple, I'm gonna look at Samsung. If I'm Samsung, I'm gonna look at Apple, right? If I want to know further information, I'm gonna look at the global sort of market of smartphones, right? How's it doing? What are the trends in global smartphones? Ooh, should we come out with a flip out phone so it turns into a phablet, right? Is that something people want or don't want? Is that a useful thing to people? Or is that, will people pay for that? An extra $600? Right? You can't just make decisions on a whim. You need good concrete information, right? Like we say, surveys, focus groups. We could just even monitor sort of some of the consumer behavior in the stores, online, see how people purchase. All right, here's your first discussion question in your groups. Why is it vital for companies to understand and use consumer insights in gathering and managing marketing information? Talk amongst your group about why is it vital? I mean, it's absolutely necessary. No ifs, ands, or buts to get these consumer insights for marketing information, right? Remember, we talking about the 4 Ps for your promotion, for price, for placement of products or the business itself, right? Positioning in the mind. Why is it vital for these customer insights? Think of some examples. Give me an example of some companies or products. If you can, use the companies that you're working on. Why is it vital for them? And what kind of insights can the companies you're working on get? What sort of insights can your company get? And why would it be vital for them? Over here, what are we thinking for Johnny's? Mm-hmm. All right, so we say, hey, retain or regain. We need the information to figure out, hey, why do you keep coming back here? Why do you keep coming back? Why did we lose you? Right? We say some people we lost, but they don't come back anymore. They don't buy the stuff anymore. Why did you not buy the iPhone and bought a Android this time? What did you not like about it, right? Apple's going to use that information to be like, hey, we lost 500,000 customers to Android. Some people bought Google Pixel, some bought the, Samsung phone. And like, why did you leave Apple? Like, I don't know, for XYZ reasons, right? I don't like it anymore. Well, how do we get them back? What strategy, tactics could we use next time to get you back? Pricing stuff, add on a free watch or something if we, something of the sort. But even for Johnny's beef, being like, well, okay, how far could we go with this beef situation? You're like, hey, we get information about, hey, what exactly do you like about the Italian beef? You're like, dude, it's the bread. You're like, oh, it's the bread? Yeah, we did surveys. We found out that people really like the bread. Even more so, the beef's okay, they may say, but that's like the Toronto bread maybe they use. And we figure out that little nuance. Or they say, we did not like the bread. We love the beef. The meat is excellent, but the bread could be better. Johnny's maybe go back and be like, hey, if we improve bread, will we increase sales or get new customers? Yes. I mean, it also goes back to the last time we were talking about availance of cash. Like if they got like customers' insights about what do they prefer to use card, then maybe they would have more customers. Yeah, absolutely. You're like, hey, Johnny, I know that you want to keep cash, but you didn't ask your customers. It's not about you, it's about the customer. So you're like, hey, yeah, man, they make a killing, but how much more of a killing could they make if boop, boop, you just scan out, right? So you're like, that might be an issue, so that might be sort of problem statement, hey, a company doesn't identify with the demands of the customer, but rather try to evoke its own sort of ideas about what we want, we need. And that's completely wrong because now you're missing out. You made $1.5 million. You could have made $3-4 million last year instead. It's a lot of money to be missed. All right, but something just as simple. You're like, hey, it's just beef, but it's not just beef. Italian beefs are ingredients. And you're like, what about this do you like? What about the fillet of fish you like? What about the Big Mac do you like or dislike? Very detailed information. Because ultimately, if that's what you really sell and do well, you need to know what about it that people, how they feel, their perception of it. What about here? So would it be information about the community, how the community feels about the program? Or is it just, do you think it's more important to look at like overall national sort of information? Or is things are just specific? What do you think? Yeah. Right, it has good information. Do most of our people in this program come here from this community? If it is this community, maybe we should ask them how they feel about it. Do we need to expand the program, right? If not, once again, we say we're making decisions. Like, who's making the decision if we don't know what customers actually feel, right? You can't just make decisions on your own. Like, I hope this works, right? It really has to be driven by demand and perspectives of customers. Mhm.
are interested in like when to market to what teams. Like if you want to market to like a junior club team, I want to do that towards the fall because
Hmm.
they would be practicing throughout the winter. But then if you want to market to more AAU programs during the summer, you might want to do that like end of winter, start of spring, knowing like when to market and who to market during the season.
Okay, so you said, hey, we need seasonal trend information on trends based on the seasons, right? And that'll sort of help us promote whatever sports that we think are going to be big during that time. Another thing may be like, hey, the U.S. Open is gone. Are we heavily promoting tennis? Right? Hey, the Olympics are going on right now. Are we capitalizing, or we just don't change anything during that time frame? Because we're like, hey, there's a lot of change in behavior for people. Maybe people are watching and becoming more interested with their children or themselves in getting involved in XYZ sport, right? So keep that in mind too. You're like, hey, there are things in the outside. You're like, oh, it's football season. How can we tie in all the rave about that into what we're going to promote or market, right? Maybe it's golf season, something of the sort like that. So we need that type of information. Back there.
You said like you kind of look at it from a trend perspective. Like if you look at a company like Nike, like before like when they make like KDs or LeBrons and stuff, at least when I was going to school in like elementary stuff, like if you wore KDs at school, like that was the thing, you know what I mean? But then now they're kind of shifting towards more of like a lifestyle thing. Like you have to wear Air Force and Dunks to like kind of fit in. So they kind of have to focus on the areas that are hot at the moment. And that's why they need customer insight.
Okay, so do you feel that, hey, we need information on like how individuals who are into basketball shoes or basketball itself, sort of perceiving the influence, like because you mentioned two sponsors, KD and LeBron, right? So is it the fact that Nike is examining to see, hey, KD and LeBron are getting pretty old? They're not the rave as they once were at some time. Since they're going away, should we grab a new person to sponsor? Or you're saying that no, that it's not really about the sponsors no more. It's more like a general lifestyle type of demand there. What do you think? Like, do you feel that?
I think they've shifted. Like I think before, when players were in their peak, they were focusing really hard on the athletic end of things, like athletic shoes. But now that those players are getting older, they're signing younger guys. They're kind of in the middle ground where they're more focused on lifestyle, so the younger guys can get better and get bigger.
Yeah. So, and honestly, they may say, hey, here's the struggle. What we observe from the trends is that, yeah, there's a LeBron that's 1 in a million. There's a KD that's 1 in 500,000. But the new guys, Anthony Edwards, all these other guys, they're not Steph, they're not LeBron, they're not KD. So like things are changing. We can't find a person that's gonna make us pay out that type of money to see the results of how people are going to be influenced by that person. So what does that tell us? It tells us that there's going to be a general lifestyle change. Maybe it's not about major influencers. Maybe it's like micro influencers. People going on TikTok and people just watching their specific tailored stuff for basketball. And if that's the case, then Nike got to change its whole sort of marketing, right, towards shoes that come out in the future. You're going to say something?
Then also, you connect to artists that are working on, I guess, platform. You think of like a menu, how some people are like, oh, this is an ordered lunch, or this is a popular thing on the menu. Some people say, okay, they get customer insights and say, okay, this is what our menu looks like. We can maybe shift it a little more where we shorten the menu, or we lower the prices, up the prices, or it can be as simple as like, oh, burgers down on like a white bun instead of doing pretzel buns or something.
Mm-hmm.
One of those kind of things where customers are like, I prefer the idea of using pretzel buns over normal ones because it adds an extra like a look to it and it also has better taste. Like customer insights on, okay, we can market our more popular items to hold people in, and that's
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So, like, think of, all right, McDonald's to say, hey, what are our most famous sandwiches? You're like, Big Mac quarter pounder. And they're Big Mac quarter pounder, chicken sandwich, and double cheeseburger. So eventually say, hey, we're going to constantly promote things associated with just these items, but we'll tweak them. All right, we'll find out what do people exactly like. Do people want lettuce on it next time? Do people want bacon? Should it be a bacon double cheeseburger in the future, right? Something of the sort there. So you're saying just a mixture, but the tricky part is with these restaurants, you're like the food goes bad. So you trying to balance all these preferences people have, but you're constantly throwing out food. You don't have that long to store it. So your inventory is constantly rotating because of waste. These are perishable items. So really, if you're not like a McDonald's, a small or like a very specific operation, in my personal opinion, I think the only way that you can make profit in restaurants while having very simple approach is what kind of a restaurant? What kind of restaurant have you observed that actually sticks around a long time and be profitable?
Restaurants that has steak fry.
That has what?
One that I can think of off the top of my head is a local one that has been relevant for years. Has been Kim. Like they have restaurants in Sterling, Rock Falls. They also have I think they have a restaurant in Clinton. And they have one in Bolton. They have them in different places. So
What do they offer that like people like?
they offer Chicken George. They offer amazing chicken Alfredo. I mean their mascot is chicken.
So chicken, right? You say who's not gonna like chicken, right? So you can say, hey, I have a chicken joint. What I was thinking is, if you want a successful restaurant that makes profit, keep it small and make it a steakhouse. Steakhouses will last if they are small, not some big fancy schmancy place with 1,000 seats. The ones that last, if you notice, was it Gina Giorgetti's, a bunch of them that's been around 80 years, 90 years, you're like, how they still open? Everybody eats steak and seafood. And you could charge a ridiculous amount of money for each plate, right? You keep it simple. You don't offer 100 things, steak, seafood.
Places like Joe's Stone Crab.
Yeah.
They're popular in Run Wild, and
The-
the rest are big. Like that's there. So, but I mean, there's places like that. There's also like Duck City Bistro in Davenport. They've been around for a long time. Their prices are huge. I think it was me and my family. We went for dinner. It was like $500 for all of us.
Yeah,
And I mean, they've lasted for years.
that's the formula. So if you go downtown, the ones that last are steakhouses. But if they're not too big, if they're big, they'll close because too much there. Yeah. So yeah, if you ever think about opening up a restaurant, you want it to be profitable and successful. Remember, we say the key ingredient is this abstract concept that absolutely makes no sense, but it works. It's just like magic. It's the concept of luxury. Like I don't know what luxury is, right? And how can you charge for it, right? It's the difference between Balenciaga and Nike. You're like, man, my Nike might have lasted me 20 years. The Balenciaga 4, but I paid $8,000 for a pair of shoes from Balenciaga because it's luxury. And you're like, what's luxury? Like nobody knows. It's in the mind of the beholder, right? So you always could go that route where you just start making up numbers. Okay, external data we said are anything data sources that it can include. Hey, stakeholder or the business or competitor's business, social media mentions, right? We could use that. And even if you're talking about the small operations like a Johnny's or whatever, like, hey, that's good information. How many times were we mentioned? Could you go yourself and start researching on Instagram, TikTok, Google, Facebook? Hey, how many times was the company I'm working on mentioned on those platforms? How many people shared it? How many people liked it? Right? Like, share, subscribe. Good information outside. News articles, well, to journal publications, right? We say these are all things that we could use outside of the organization. And then we said internal data. It's critical, right? Because it already exists to the company. This information is held in a database, which is collection of the related data, such as sales and promotional effectiveness, right? So we have historical information about, hey, that one time we went 20% off on such and such product, it yielded us 5% increase in sales. Like, wow, that's good information to know. Maybe if we run that same promotion at a certain time, we might have the same results. Or you could say, hey, that may not work this time. The trends, the taste, the preferences have changed for people. People don't buy the same stuff at the same amount, but good information nonetheless, good business intelligence to have, right? Pricing information, right? We could always alter that. That's important to know because we'll look at our competitors and say, ours is too expensive. They offer a cheaper product. Product launch information, which is good, right? We want to know how things worked out when we first presented to the market, because usually that's a good indicator on how people truly feel. Meaning if they bought it at a high degree and it totally tapered off, maybe 3 months later, you're like, oh, it's really kind of a gimmick. This product, in the minds of consumers, is not going to be a long-term demand that we expect. R&D, right? So we think of all the technical places and even non-technical. Think of research and development for McDonald's and Burger King. Before they put something on the menu, they do a bunch of taste tests, right? Maybe thousands of people to be like, hey, that goes good without barbecue sauce. That's what we yielded from this information. That goes well with mayo, right? And then logistics information. How much time does it take for us to move products from one place to another? Either for us to receive it, either for us to ship it, either for us to store it, places on shelves, and finally get it to customers, right? Good information to know. And how could we work on increasing all of that? Here's some examples. In the percentage of coupons redeemed, right? Hey, here's a promotion with a coupon. How many people actually redeemed it? That's viable to know. The sales volume at specific prices. Hey, if we lower 10 cents and see how we do the next month, what could we learn from that? You're like, well, lowering the prices helped increase sales, or didn't. Highest grossing motion picture for a production company. Right, that's important for movie making. Right? You think movies have budgets. Hey, here's $100 million to go make your movie. We expect to make at least double. So hopefully we make 200 million. I just recently saw one of the worst movies I've ever seen in the theater. And I'm so disappointed. Anybody familiar with The Godfather? Who's seen The Godfather? And who's seen Dracula from like the 90s? Apocalypse Now. You know? All right, so the director of Godfather is Francis Ford Coppola, right? And, one of the greatest directors of all time. And I was expecting, this is supposed to be one of his grandest works. I think he spent like 120 million of his own money to make this movie called Megalopolis. It's in theaters. And it's supposed to be concept of ancient Rome meets like modern day New York. And it's supposed to be about like politics and things that are kind of happening now and all the things that are kind of trending now. Anyway, it was a total failure. I don't even know really what the movie's about after I left the film. But at the same time, I'm like, well, why did he spend 120 million of his own money? Because they wouldn't give him the money for it. The production company knew it would be a failure, right? So they need information to know. They're like, oh, this is great, but this plot is just too all over the place. The results is I feel the same way, right? And you can see the reviews on it, and it's really bad. Okay, and even the most missed question on last unit's marketing exam, right? Good information to know. Why did you miss that question? Speaking of that, we may be having a formal midterm that I'll give, but I'll keep you informed. Nothing too crazy about. And then the second part is we need to use the 3D printer for this course. So each group needs to create something using the university's 3D printing services to make some sort of item. And maybe the item should be relative to your business or product or something of the sort. But I'll get more information about that for next week. So I have to meet with the department chair for that. All right, competitive intelligence, collection of data from the marketplace that is related to any of the marketing mix elements, the 4 Ps, including checking prices of competitors' products to make sure company price is competitive, conducting promotional audit to verify each of a company's messages, right? And examine the competitive industry's distribution channels to allow the company to identify a new location. I used to work, I think I mentioned before, for the Blackstone Group, and I worked as a marketing researcher for some pretty big companies, Microsoft, Apple, Google. And one of my specific jobs were to find out where to put Starbucks and Apple stores too. So a lot of research was involved in terms of like looking at demographics of neighborhoods, consumer behavior in those neighborhoods, income levels, ethnic groups, right? Which kind of people drink coffee, which kinds don't, all sorts of stuff. So it's really interesting information just finding specific locations that will work in certain neighborhoods. All right, here's our next discussion question. All right, public policies and laws supporting ethics in marketing research have resulted in companies like Meta, formerly Facebook, being accused of intruding upon consumer privacy, misusing information gathered from users, and exploiting children. First question with your group. As a consumer, how do you feel about companies tracing your digital footprint? Do you think it's ethical or unethical that they trace all of your digital activity, your footprint? Talk about that amongst your group. Give me your reasons, either or. Right, because I usually feel bad being traced, right? Looking for guns, explosives, right? All sorts of heinous things to do bad things. I don't want nobody to trace that, right? It's still my own personal behavior. Just kidding, yeah. Okay, let's see how we feel about it. All right, let's see how we feel, right? Wonder how Diddy feels about if they saw him searching for baby oil on Facebook or something. All right, what do you think? You don't like it, or you don't care? Because it's private, personal. You don't want nobody knowing all that.
I said for the second question, like I guess from a market point of view, it's kind of like useful for them to see what you want to buy, because they can see what you've been searching and everything. But still, like I feel like most people are okay with getting tracked, like with their every move online.
So you're saying the the reward is, hey, they can see what I track, so they know what I want.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not searching anything I don't want, and that helps things show up that I like that I may not have known existed. Okay. But here, okay. So, but have you purchased based on pop-ups off your? Is okay. Like it, hate it, what?
Facebook, liking, competitive plus other apps. Now, yeah, I buy like a bunch of them and stuff like that. So I allow it for Mossberg, Bass Pro Hotels, all kinds of like websites like that. And like they just kind of notify me when something new is coming out. So that's kind of essentially how I found out about like the 30 by 6 apartment purchase. So that's like the only thing that I allow tracking customers.
Tracking.
That's mainly what I look up though.
Okay. You guys feel the same?
Think about like buying something at a physical store. You don't like let somebody in your house like see all the stuff you bought. I think you should apply to digital stuff.
It's too invasive. What do you think? You prefer your privacy, but have you purchased based on what popped up because of your search history? Have you purchased things based on what popped up in your search history? So it worked. You might have been satisfied with those things. Right? I mean, think of it, an issue might be like, whoa, wait, hang on. Yeah, they're searching my stuff, but how much are they searching? Because I might have said just a word, and later on that word popped up in YouTube. You're like, is that a coincidence? Like, man, we were just talking about that on the phone, and it pops up on Facebook. You're like, wait, I know you're tracking me searching, but are you also tracking my voice? Right? Is there something hidden that you snuck in? Is there something that you snuck in this agreement that I say, y'all check the box and agree to? Or, hey, as a user, you agree to it. In order to use this platform, terms and conditions, you agree. As long as you're on this platform, we could track you. Right? Do you agree to continue to use it? Yeah, sure, I like the platform. Now you find that they're tracking your voice. Back here.
So what we talked about was like we feel like it's okay only if like to prevent like the traditional like school shootings or like see if there's anything that a person may do in the future that could lead to something incriminating.
Okay.
So like they found like some videos like put up on the longer like long very specific thing like things that like can so like the federal agency needs to investigate. They can go through history because everyone can use that, and they can go through like keywords that can correlate to it. So I feel like it's okay. It is weird, but like yeah.
You might say, well, some might say, man, that's kind of political. So if we're going to search one, search all. Maybe I want to look up guns, right? We like guns. We want to look up guns. So you're going to focus more on me because I'm looking up guns, right? I bet that's unfair, right?
I feel like as of now, like even a 14-year prevented school shooting, which was crazy to everyone because we thought it was older, but it's happening like younger each year. And like high rates of suicides, like kids actually losing suicide,
Hmm.
But if you're like, they know you're a good person, you can have to like have a, authority to that, so
Okay.
I
It's
feel like
like
that only makes you less
that's a lot of power to the companies that you give, right? To moderate what, but you like, hey, within reason. Some things are criminal, and some things, people do search for are unusual and should be looked at. Yeah.
Just kind of like what he said, like I understand where he's coming from on that, but the process to buy a gun is so complex and complicated. Like you have to do a background check, you have to fill out paperwork before you buy the gun. You have to go through a system like now back home for us. You have to have your papers sent off. The government looks over your papers, they send it back, and then if you get approved, then you have to fill out the paperwork again after the fact.
Yeah.
You have to write down all of the information, sign papers, and it gets sent off. And they keep that all on record. So if you sold the gun to somebody else and you didn't get like a bill of sale with the same exact numbers, then and if you can't like provide that document, if something like when you
Mhm.
say like school shooting goes down, if you can't provide that document for the person that did it, you're the one that falls for it.
Yeah.
So that's why that system is in place. But I understand where he's coming from. Yes, there
Yeah.
should be more strict laws. I do agree with that, but it is a very complex
It's
situation.
complex. You're like, well, all right, maybe most of the school shooters got the guns from parents, so it didn't matter. Their parents got them legally. It's in the house. Somebody's gonna find a way to get them. Right? Give somebody enough time and motivation, and they'll do what they need to do. Okay, back there. What do you think?
kind of saw both sides to where like it is just a complete violation at times, but then on the other side, we said that if it's like if I'm on Facebook Marketplace looking at cars and I get a car ad, like I wouldn't think it was like the biggest deal because I was on the marketplace looking for that item, or if I was on Amazon and like I was looking at a certain item and I got an ad for it, I was on a really marketplace where I can buy or sell. That's what they got the data. But
Mhm.
if I'm on like my TikTok just scrolling and I get an ad about something that's related, I wouldn't know if I'd agree with that one. I know there's like TikTok shop and Instagram shop, but you're not going on there like looking for items per se. They just kind of are there.
They're annoying. Yeah, they could be really, really annoying. Especially on TikTok. Like it's over too much stuff. So you're like, oh, you're creating a nuisance. Just leave me alone, right? What about over here?
I feel like I say that I don't like it, but like secretly I do. Because like obviously I don't want like my privacy to get like invaded. Like let me say like that feels like a violation. Like it feels like a violation until I actually buy what's being marketed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think of somebody else. If you were someone could pull the information from that company, literally see everything you searched for the last X amount of years. Like that's pretty heavy, right? All right. And the next question is, hey, what is any possible solution? So maybe there's some things good about it. Hey, I like it because it influences my behavior to buy things that I actually search for, and I like that makes sense. But then we don't like the conflict of, our invasion of privacy or companies having that much control over information, that much power. So, what are some possible solutions that you could think of to kind of moderate between the two? Right? You're like, hey, you know what? Pay $9.99 to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and we won't keep that information. You opted out at a price. You're like, that might be an interesting marketing ploy. Would you still be on TikTok? $9.99 a month? Right? Or you say, I don't know, something else. Could you think of any other way that they could get creative? Right? Maybe you have limitations in the things that you could view based on you opting out or something, right? Obviously, maybe you can opt out. The obvious one is say, hey, I opt out from you tracking my information either on your device or on the app itself. but something could be done. All right, and then lastly, I'll stop here. I have, it's like an 8-minute video talking about Coca-Cola's marketing strategies, and I want you to watch that to see what are some of the tactics that Coca-Cola use in order to effectively market. And then we'll have maybe a couple minutes for you to get with your groups and talk more about your projects.
Hi, welcome to Thought Catalyst. I'm Charles Painter, and today we're going to be talking about the marketing campaigns of the Coca-Cola Company. Coca-Cola was first invented within an Atlanta-based pharmacy by Dr. John Pemberton in May 1886. Initially sold at local soda fountain counters, growing demand and the idea of making the beverage portable led to bottling sparkling
All right.
They produce over 3,500 varied products, spanning from sodas to bottled water to iced teas and coffees. Despite an estimated 94% of the world's population recognizing the red and white Coca-Cola logo, nearly 10% of their revenue, $41 billion, was spent on advertising and marketing campaigns last year. This astronomical $4 billion was spent on a diverse range of campaign tactics across multiple geographic regions. As with many things in the world, ironically, the companies that are the most well recognized possess the highest budget for their advertising and public image. Luckily, this hefty budget allows Coke to experiment and get creative with their marketing, providing the opportunity to remind us why they're as successful as they are. And what is the Coca-Cola brand built upon? Well, it's this secret, training our brains to associate the brand with a good feeling, be that happiness, relaxation, friends, love, anything, rather than the soda itself that makes them good at what they do. Now, we're going to go through a few examples here. First of all, let's have a look at the 2015 Christmas advert. For many, the arrival of the iconic Holidays Are Coming Coca-Cola truck, it's a highlight of the period, building excitement for Christmas. The ad might be 21 years old, but interest in it shows a little sign of diminishing as it brings out everyone's nostalgic side. The focus of last year's A Coke for Christmas ad follows a young boy who aims to spread the joy through giving Coca-Cola to those who are making Christmas a reality, including a dad, a shop assistant, and Santa Claus himself. Now, the important aspects of the advert is that it targets the whole family. The ability to provide the experience for the entire family is essential. The commercial itself closely follows Coke's primary principles in their advertising. Rather than attempting to sell a drink, Coke focuses on selling an abstract positive concept, such as happiness, family, and sharing. As we can see, Coke have become experts at selling these non-concrete conceptions. This year's video, like many before it, remains true to their core values that they use in their marketing campaigns year-round. Along with this, Coke modified their traditional formula for advertising, adopting a more multi-channel approach. Traditionally, video, print, and physical advertising were the focal point of Coke's festive commercials. However, this year saw the addition of Coke TV and social media via hashtags and a Coke emoji. This was an attempt to broaden their influential radius. Now, the next example we're going to look at is called Share a Can. Now, Coke's Share Happiness campaign has been one of the key pillars of their advertising machine. This involved multiple previous strategies, such as the Coke Hug Me machine and the hugely successful debranding tactic, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. However, the Coca-Cola sharing can may have successfully created the most literal rendition of sharing a Coke. The regular-looking can of Coke can be twisted to become two mini cans, allowing probably one of the easiest methods for sharing a Coke on the move. As part of the pilot project, Coke distributed its sharing can to thirsty Singaporeans and documented their surprised reactions. The documentary of this surprised happiness involved the team accompanying the distributors, following them to areas where they knew there would be heavy traffic, and filmed people's authentic reactions. This documentation provided Coke with video evidence of the purest possible form of happiness, showing how people would react and the kind of power it has. Now, finally, we go on to debranding. As mentioned earlier, arguably the most successful share happiness campaign would be the debranding tactic. Marketing director Lucy Austin and her team within Coca-Cola's South Pacific branch were delivered a 151-word creative brief that gave them free rein to deliver a truly disruptive idea that would make headlines and capture the country's attention. The resulting campaign, known internally as Project Connect, based on its ambition to both strengthen the brand's bond with Australia's young adults and inspire shared moments of happiness with the real and virtual worlds, became known as Share a Coke. The primary concept behind this was the swapping out of Coke branding on bottles and cans in favour of 150 of the most popular names in Australia, allowing Coke to reach 42% of the population. This campaign was released and almost immediately saw a positive reaction, with unaffiliated celebrities buying bottles, and social media conversation and media coverage blowing up as a result. Within that summer, Coke sold more than 250 million named bottles and cans in a nation of just under 23 million people. This overwhelming positive result led to the expansion of the campaign across the world, reaching more than 70 countries. As the campaign spread across the globe, over 17,000 names were used, including generic nicknames and titles such as Mom and Dad and Mate. These additional titles purposefully made the invitation more about giving a Coke to someone else rather than keeping it to yourself, and broadened the appeal and played to their core principles. The ability of such a revolutionary and notable campaign could be argued to rely solely on the ability to relate to the customer on the eye level. Lucy Austin suggests that the success derived from the use of our name, the most personal thing we possess. It's our fingerprint, our identity, in one word. It can't get much more personal than seeing our name, our own unique identifier, on a bottle of Coke. The campaign capitalized on the global trend of self-expression and sharing, but it did so in an emotional way. Coke's advertising team have released its fair share of interesting campaigns, some with more success than others, but few could be called an outright disaster, with the possible exception of New Coke. The continued pursuit of alluring and revolutionary advertising tactics by Coke is sure to assist the sales of their products worldwide, and will not be likely to go anywhere anytime soon. As you can see, Coca-Cola have shown that by engaging with their customers and not just shouting from the rooftops about how great they are, they're able to grow year on year and build a brand loyalty and a brand awareness that you just don't see in many other sectors. And it's a lesson that a lot of companies could do with learning. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more of what we do, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll catch you again next time. Goodbye.
All right, so what is Coca-Cola's tactic and strategies to make it so successful? Yes.
A lot of it seems like they center around friends and family. Seems like, and also it seems like welcoming them. Everybody can also symbolism of happiness.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you say, hey, Coke is about community, right? Whether it's family, whether it's people you're with, friends, whatever. And Coke is trying to attach yourself to some emotion in some way, right? Happiness, gratitude, gratefulness, sharing. Anything else? Which one of his strategies you think was like super clever? Was it the personalization of the Coke or the splitting of the Coke where you could share it? Which one we thought was better?
The splitting Coke was pretty clever.
Yeah, and even in the concept, maybe we say, hey, this is about the concept, the idea in people's mind, how they feel about the product. And are you asking them to do something extra? Are you making them feel a certain way? Are you having them to think even more than they would with your competitors? So if you're having somebody to actually be able to twist something, you've made them do an act.